Okay. Namo Om Vishnu Badaya Krishna Bhashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavari Pashtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Gaura Padmanandi Hare Bol. So we are continuing with the Bhagavad Gita, and we continue with chapter 13. And we're specifically reading the items of knowledge as described in text 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we've been on this purport for a couple of weeks. I'm sure we will finish today. Let's see. Hare Krishna. Right.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I wanted to share the story. Can I?
Yes. Well, story
quickly.
To start.
It's very important because it's very important story because yesterday in the morning at 6:30, my friend left body.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And yeah, no, it's okay. It actually is very good because she was for 20 years she was coming or going into Krishna consciousness, but she could not get in, you know what I mean? Because she had like addiction, drinking. So she was binge drinking and japa chanting and going to Harina or Rathayatra everywhere, but she could not.
Interesting combination.
Yeah,
binge drinking and japa.
She struggled. Yeah, exactly. Because when she was living, she lived in Scotland, and she was calling me and I supporting her. I said, okay, Chanjapa. She was drinking in secret. She didn't want me to know because she pretended that she doesn't drink. But actually, I could recognize from her voice. But all in all, what I want to say, that doctors could not do anything for her because liver was finished because of her drinking, and doctors could not help her because they came and said, you have left hours to live, not days. So she left body in 2 days, 3 days. But she left at 6:30, and in Scotland, usually there is no sun, very little, you know. And devotees who were with her, because they put Kantimala, they japa and kirtan and deities, everything they showed her. And she was unconscious, but still she could feel. And sun come up, sun rose, and rain came, and rainbow. So devotees called quickly to Lithuania. We have had Pujari senior person seemed like Murli Manohar in London. So we have somebody in Lithuania. And they said, you see, this is very auspicious moment because Vishnudutas came to take her. It's time, despite whatever she was, but she was struggling with her addiction, but probably her last thought was about Krishna. Maybe she was meditating in Krishna. So what I want to say, that it's good that she left her body because she can start life from fresh new life as a devotee, because she couldn't battle her addiction. It was hard for her. But what I want to say, that whatever fallen we are, still Krishna doesn't give up on us.
Thank you for sharing that.
This is the message.
It's by your grace that you kept in touch with her despite her difficulties. And so it's by your grace and mercy that
I try to support her all.
Better situation she had. It will be auspicious for her where she is now. Let's hope and pray.
Yeah, I think Krishna escaped her, saved her, because here was no chance for her. So that's why she can start life as a devotee.
Yeah, another chance, another body.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
How Krishna is
Thank you. The process of Krishna consciousness is very profound. Can help anyone in any situation. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Okay, so then we'll pick up from here. This paragraph here we did read last week. 1 second. This phone keeps ringing. Let me just turn it off. We did read last week, but I read it right at the end in quite a rush. So I thought we could just read it again, just starting this paragraph here, because there are some important points that devotees might want to ask questions about. But before we do that, let me just read the verse again, just so we remember the context. Okay, so here's the verse: humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, and home, and the rest. That's where we're going to pick up today. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and a philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. I was just thinking if you had these choices of subjects in the university, it would be very good to study. If you go to university, these are the subjects you can study. Simplicity, tolerance, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. These would be the subjects, but none of these are the subjects that you can study in a university. But here you can. So this is what Krishna calls real knowledge. Yeah. So let's just continue then. Someone would like to pick the reading up from here. See where it says, as for. Welcome, devotees who have just joined us. Thank you for joining us. And as usual, we're always open for questions or comments as we're reading. But let's have someone to read this paragraph.
Haribol, I can read.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mabalavangalataka.
Yeah. As for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should not have no feeling for these. They are natural objects of affection, but when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy, because this process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Have some discussion on books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These four things will make one happy. One should train the members of his family in this way. The family members can sit down morning and evening and chant together Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, following these four principles, then there is no need to change from family life to renounced life. But if it is not congenial, not favorable for spiritual advancement, then family life should be abandoned. One must sacrifice everything to realize or serve Krishna, just as Arjuna did. Arjuna did not want to kill his family members, but when he understood that these family members were impediments to
No, second.
to his Krishna realization, he accepted the instruction of Krishna and fought and killed them. In all cases, one should be detached from the happiness and distress of family life, because in this world, one can never be fully happy or fully miserable.
Okay.
Happiness.
Yeah, we'll just pause there. So you cannot be fully miserable. What does Prabhupada mean by that? He says we can't be fully miserable. But we hear that this world is full of misery.
There's always a little hope or a little something that you find worth living for?
Yeah, you could say that. Anybody else? I'm just really curious about this sentence myself, so I haven't got a specific answer. I'm just hearing what you might say. So that's one idea.
Is it like seasons, like winter and summer? It's like when there's happiness, there's going to be followed by misery. And if it's misery, then it's followed by happiness, is it? Yeah. So it's not fully, there's always going to be happiness after misery. I don't know. That's my kind of thinking, maybe.
And then after misery, there's going to be happiness.
Happiness. So it's never fully, because you know that even after this, it's always followed by happiness and misery. Is that? I don't know. I could be wrong, but
you're right. You're saying the same type of thing as Mother Lavanga, really.
Yeah.
The realities of this world. Sometimes we surface out of the water of suffering and take a deep breath of a few seconds of happiness.
Happiness.
Only again to be immersed
down again
in anxiety. Anybody else? Is this what Prabhupada is saying here? I think go on. Sorry.
The members of the family, when you finish your duty, they automatically mentally begin to detach. So we know they are there and we honor them and respect them. But we know that we've got our bhakti yoga to practice. So keep the distance.
Yeah, so you're speaking on another point, but yeah, that's correct. And we'll pick up on that in a minute. But yeah, I think just on this point, I think you're correct. One idea I had when I read this before was that we fully miserable can only be in relationship to feeling separation from Krishna, but I think that's too much of an esoteric answer. I think Prabhupada is speaking more on the worldly platform here. Yeah, let's just keep it like that before I speculate anything. Yeah.
I'm back in India. I know some people run away from home because they are so fed up, they want to become a sadhu. The life is so upsetting for them that they're fully miserable and giving up, and they don't come back. They go and stay in a temple and they remain in the temple. They become sadhus then.
Okay. So, yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because Prabhupada does say here, but if family life is not congenial or not favorable for spiritual advancement, then family life should be abandoned. But it shouldn't be a whimsical decision because naturally, as we just read that last sentence, family life or life in general is going to mean sometimes it's good or sometimes it's bad. Sometimes there's struggles and sometimes they're not. So one shouldn't whimsically, in the mode of passion, we could say, give up family life as soon as there's some difficulties. So, but it might come to a point where that might be there might come to a point where that might be the move that one makes. But one really wants to be careful before one decides to do that. Yeah. Especially if you do have responsibilities for children, etc., then you shouldn't whimsic because it could be, that could be detrimental to one's spiritual advancement. So I guess with time, place, and circumstance. Prabhupada, I think he might also be speaking from experience because at one point he gave up his family even before all his children were married. Yeah. And he got quite some criticism of his extended family they was accusing him of being irresponsible. Yeah. But Prabhupada, I think it was divine intervention. And we know the story or why, when and how Prabhupada left, Any other questions or comments here on this particular paragraph? So how is everyone doing? Do you all manage to sit down in the morning and evening and chant Hare Krishna with the family?
Well, it's just two of us. So yes, we do. In the morning,
Great,
we have
great.
full program. In the evening, Aarti, Gaur Aarti.
Great. That's wonderful. So yeah. I bring it up as a question because it's not always so easy. That's what I see sometimes. It's not always so easy to do. But Prabhupada's he's given an easy given some instructions here by which we can be Krishna conscious. I guess some of the devotees might not want to say. Let me pick on someone. Sahachari Mother, do you manage to sit down in the morning and in the evening and chant Hare Krishna with the family? Perhaps not. Be quiet. Anupama?
Well, Haribol, Prabhu, my both boys are out of the home, so it's only me and Prabhu. So I do
Okay.
my sadhana in the morning, and in the evening I don't chant. No.
Oh, you do some arti or something? No, you just
Yes, yes. Yeah, I do all that. I do arti and everything, but because I've done my chanting in the morning, then sometimes I might do, sometimes I don't. But I listen to the chanting going on, which is constant.
okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Should we read on? There's any other questions or comments here? This section. Okay, let's perhaps we can all read the devotees can read a paragraph each. So someone else would like to read the next paragraph, and then someone else the next paragraph, and then we'll move on to text 13.
Okay, can I read?
Please, yeah.
Happiness and distress are concomitant factors of material life. One should learn to tolerate as advised in Bhagavad Gita. One can never restrict the coming and going of happiness and distress. So one should be detached from the materialistic way of life and be automatically equiposed in both cases. Generally, when we get something desirable, we are very happy. And when we get something undesirable, we are distressed. But if we are actually in spiritual position, these things will not agitate us. To reach that stage, we have to practice unbreakable devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna without deviation means engaging oneself in the 9 processes of devotional service: chanting, hearing, worshipping, offering respect, etc. As described in the last verse of the 9th chapter, that process should be followed.
Yeah. Can anyone cite the verse that Prabhupada was referring to about happiness and distress? I think Navraj Kishore just hinted upon it. Chapter 2.
Matra sparshastu kaunteya,
Yeah, correct.
shitoshuna sukhadukkadaha,
Agama
agam apaino anityas tam stitikshva bharata.
and the translation?
The coming and going of the seasons.
Well, happiness and distress are like.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I just understanding from the verse, so I won't know exact words.
Yeah, happiness and distress are like winter and summer.
Season.
They're the winter and summer seasons. One should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. But it's not so easy, as I'm sure we can all experience, because distress is something that you experience, isn't it? Distress is an emotion that you actually go through. And to step back from that and learn to accept it is not always so easy. Normally, when we're in a difficult situation, then we might try to adjust it or to avoid it. Depends on the specific situation. Because there are some situations, some distressful situations where we can adjust and we can make things a bit better. But also there is some situations that we can't. And at that point, we have to press the tolerant button. There's a tolerance button at the back of her head. Like Shishik was describing it. We just have to press it sometimes. You have to press, okay, tolerance button. Because whatever you do, it's not going to change. Yeah. You may have a challenging situation, especially in family life, or you may be one of the family members, very difficult. They may be very difficult to actually live with, but what can you do? You have to tolerate. Yeah.
We have to change ourselves to adjust to the person and the circumstances.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. You have to change our disposition. Yeah, we have to be tolerant
Yes.
and then change ourselves. Yeah. And then we can, and then it's easier for us to chant nicely. It's easier for us to have to engage in our sadhana. Otherwise, if we don't have this tolerance, we'll be always agitated. So the Prabhupada says here, but if we're actually in a spiritual position, these things will not agitate us. Okay, this is the test, you could say. And then Prabhupada explains how to reach that stage, and it's unbreakable devotional service, without deviation, engaging in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. And you know this last verse of the 9th chapter? Is this Manmana Mavat Bhakto? Is that correct? You're muted, Maharaj Kishore, if you're speaking.
I think it's Manmanabha Mad
It
Bhakto
is that, yeah.
Madhyajimam Namaskuru.
Yeah.
Mami Vaishyasi Satyam Te.
Pito Jani Puyoshime. Yeah. Okay. All right, so you turn up the tolerance button. But we can only do that if we're Krishna conscious. Yeah. If we're Krishna conscious, then Prabhupada says here, then we will not be, but if we're actually in the spiritual bushes and these things not agitate us. I mean, that's always, for me, that's a sign. If I'm becoming unduly agitated and disturbed, I can ascertain that I'm not Krishna conscious. I need to focus more on my Krishna consciousness because I'm just getting too agitated. I'm getting too disturbed. Normally, you can normally tell when you're becoming too agitated and too disturbed when it enters into your japa and you're finding it hard to concentrate on the holy name because you're so disturbed about a certain situation. That's normally not a good sign. That's generally a sign that you really need to, go a bit deeper and accept it for what it is, that you may not be able to do anything about it. So just continue with our Krishna consciousness. So I'm sure we will get plenty of practice in this. Okay. All right. Unless there's some comments or questions on this point. Otherwise, someone else would like to read the next paragraph.
Shall I read? Is it from Naturally?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Naturally, when one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, he will not want to mix with materialistic men. That would go against his grain. One may test himself by seeing how far he is inclined to live in a solitary place without unwanted association. Naturally, a devotee has no taste for unnecessary sporting or cinema going or enjoying some social function because he understands that these are simply a waste of time. There are many research scholars and philosophers who study sex life or some other subject, but according to the Bhagavad Gita, such research work and philosophical speculation have no value. That is more or less nonsensical. According to Bhagavad Gita, one should make research by philosophical discretion into the nature of the soul. One should make research to understand the self. That is recommended here. Shall I carry on?
Sorry, I just muted myself by mistake. So Prabhupada's speaking about a couple of points in the verse here, this first one. I'm sure we naturally it isn't the way Prabhupada describes naturally. When one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, he will not want to mix with materialistic men. It's quite amazing that anyone and everyone who takes up Krishna consciousness with sincerity, they at some point come to this realization, or they come to this, yeah.
Mm.
It becomes very, very difficult to associate in the same way with one's, you could say, materialistic or materialistic friends.
Mm.
It's just
Taste is not there.
sorry?
The taste is different.
Yeah, you have
You
a
know,
higher taste. Yeah.
higher taste.
Yeah, you have a higher taste. Yeah.
But the relations cannot be avoided.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah, that's the difficult one.
therefore you have to press that tolerant button. But yeah, but
I
devotees,
think it's more difficult with family than friends.
yeah, more difficult because you're obliged in one sense. You have some obligation
Yeah.
with family. But there is ways, and devotees, I mean, Robert Chandravali often speaks about this. There is ways, and after some time, you can learn by the grace of Krishna how to move in the world, how to move in your family in such a way that you're not taking on their association, or you're not exposing yourself more than what you really have to.
Mm.
There is ways of going about things, there is ways of going about family situations where you do your duty as far as is required for you being a relative, but at the same time, we have to be a little bit intelligent in our Krishna consciousness. And we have to, for instance, if a family member says, if, a family member who's not following regulative principles, and they invite you to go on holiday for 2 weeks somewhere. You got to be a bit diplomatic, even if it's not true. You got to think of any reason you can to avoid that. Oh, I really love to go, but this, but that, but this, but that. I'm a bit sick or this or that. Sometimes we have to be a little bit diplomatic in how we move in this world for the sake of our spiritual life, Unless we're really empowered and we think that we can make a change to them, then that's something else. But with family members, it's very difficult. So we want to be a little bit shrewd is perhaps another word to use. Not a good word, but we have to. Prabhupada said here, we have to. One must sacrifice everything to realize or serve Krishna. Yeah. So in regards to to our spiritual development, because we know that we might be affected by that ongoing, constant association, close association. So I don't know, everyone's in different situations. Some of you, this might be easier, and for others, it might not be.
Mm.
For me, it's quite easy. All my immediate family have passed away. And I am a brahmachari, so it's quite easy. But for yourselves, I'd imagine it might be quite challenging. So you want to be a bit, you want to be a bit.
Especially weddings, I think, that's a bit of a challenge, because most weddings now, they have like the non-veg and stuff, and you just don't really want to be there. Oh, it's I think those sort of, otherwise you can make excuses and kind of excuse yourself, but yeah, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, sometimes you can't, or you can go, and you can stay for now and just
Yes.
disappear out the back door. As long as you come and you've shown your face. I'm just reading Srimad Bhagavatam at the moment in the 7th canto, the chapter Ideal Family Life. And Bhagavatam's given instructions for the householder who's following Krishna consciousness, that other family members may say, you should do this, you should do that. Why why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you concentrate more? Or why don't you get a bigger house? Why don't you get a job with more money? Like that. But then it describes that the devotee should say, yes, yes, you are right. Yes, I think you're right. And then they don't do anything about it. They just pacify them. Yeah, you're right, actually. I should work more. I should spend less time at the temple. You just kind of say that, but then you don't actually do it. So that's advice coming from Bhagavatam. Being about it.
Or, they discuss a lot of current affairs, like news and things. And, I don't tend to watch the news because I just feel, what's the point? It's not really going to affect us. So I think, when they get together and they're talking, you kind of feel a little bit lost because you don't really know what's going on.
No, that's so now you feel lost. You don't know what's going on. You're out of touch. That's good. So Brahmikata, we want to.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so devotees, well, most devotees here are practicing for quite a few years, so you're probably quite expert at how you're dealing or not dealing with your more materialistic family members. But those perhaps are more younger, you can give advice, you can give great advice to new devotees, who are dealing with, taking up Krishna consciousness, but they're still obligated to family members,
Difficult to preach family members.
Yes. All right. Let's read on. Someone else like to read the next paragraph as far as self-realization is concerned?
Shall I read, Prabhu?
Yes, please.
As far as self-realization is concerned, it is clearly stated here that Bhakti Yoga is especially practical. As soon as there is a question of devotion, one must consider the relationship between the supersoul and the individual soul. The individual soul and the supersoul cannot be one, at least not in the Bhakti conception, the devotional conception of life. This service of the individual soul to the Supreme Soul is eternal, nityam, as it is clearly stated. So bhakti or devotional service is eternal. One should be established in that philosophical conviction.
Yeah, you can read the next 2 paragraphs as well. Well,
Okay. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11, this is explained. Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam avantyam. Those who are actually knowers of the absolute truth know that the self is realized in 3 different phases, as Brahman, Brahmatma, and Bhagwan. Bhagwan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to that platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord. This is the perfection of knowledge.
okay, thank you. I just read the last paragraph. So now Prabhupada is going to summarize the whole purport. Yeah. Beginning from practicing humility, amam bitvam, adam bitvam, up to the point of realization of the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead. This is just like a staircase, beginning from the ground floor up to the top floor. Now, on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second or third floor. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is understanding Krishna, he is at a lower stage of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God and at the same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. To think oneself God is most puffed up. Although the living entity is always being kicked by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks, I am God, because of ignorance. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth. Okay? Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so we have to keep on going. Maybe on the first or second floor, but we have to keep going until Krishna shakes our hand, like he did for Lord Brahma. Yeah? Keep going. Yeah, Prabhupada says here. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at the lower stage of knowledge. Yeah. Okay. Any reflections, comments, or questions on this? Otherwise, we can move now on to text 13. Okay, so remember this chapter. Anyone can remember the title of this chapter? You can look in your Bhagavad Gita. Someone can just remind us.
Nature, the enjoying consciousness.
Correct, yeah. Nature, the enjoying consciousness. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we've heard about the process of knowledge. Now we can continuing. Someone like to read this text 13? You can, well, we're reading the Sanskrit here in Bhagavad Gita, so have a go. Any brave souls? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? Okay, I shall jump in again. Ganeyam yat tat pavakshami yat ganam yat gana vambritam ashnute anadi mat param brahma na sattan nashat uchate. Translation. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal, Brahman, the spirit, the beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So let me read that again. Sorry. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Purport. The Lord has explained the field of activities and the knower of the field. Here's so the field of activities is
Body.
the body, yeah, and everything related to the body. And the knower of the field?
Soul.
Soul, correct, yeah. He has also explained the process of knowing the knower of the field. That's what we just read, text 8 to 12. Knowing the field of activities. Now he begins to explain the knowable. So this is Krishna. Yeah. First the soul, well, that's the jiva, and then the super soul. By knowledge of the knower, both the soul and the super soul, one can relish nectar in life. Okay, one can relish nectar, divine nectar in life. As explained in the second chapter, the living entity is eternal. That is also confirmed here. There is no specific date at which the jiva was born. Nor can anyone trace out the history of the jivatma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. Okay, so we might want to meditate upon that sometimes, that I was never born and I will never die. Yeah, we just inhabit the internal souls, as we know, just inhabit temporary bodies, but actually there's no birthday for the soul. It's only birthdays for the body, but not for the soul. Quite Quite an amazing concept, actually. Nor can anyone trace out the history of the Jivatma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. Yeah, because if we're eternal, how can we manifest? You understand? If we're eternal, that means we have never come from. We always was. It's inconceivable to try and understand it. We can't trace out the history of the Jivatma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is beginningless. The word for beginningless is anadi. Describe that our being in the material world is anadi. It is beginningless. The Vedic literature confirms this. Najayate michite va vipaschit kata Upanishad. The knower of the body is never born and never dies, and he is full of knowledge. Okay, we are covered at the moment, so that knowledge is covered by ignorance. The Supreme Lord as a Supersoul is also stated in the Vedic literature. The Supreme Lord as the Supersoul is also stated in the Vedic literature, Sri Tashratara Upanishad 6:16, to be, Pradana Shatragan Pati Ganeshaha, the chief knower of the body and the master of the modes of nature. The chief knower of the body and the master of the three modes of nature. In the Smriti, it is said, Dasa Bhotu Hari Eva Nanyashayeva Kadachana. The living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya in his teachings. Therefore, the description of Brahman mentioned in this verse is in relation to the individual soul. And when the word Brahman is applied to living entity, it is to be understood that he is Vigyan Brahma, as opposed to Ananda Brahma. Ananda Brahma is the supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead. Okay. Any questions, comments about this? Any points not clear? It's describing here different categories of Brahman. We are Brahman. Haribol. Krishna is Brahman. The material world is designated as Brahman as well. But within these different designations of Brahman, there are differences. That's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. Because there's a certain philosophy, which I'm sure we've heard of by reading Prabhupada's books, to say there is no actual distinction between Brahman. It is all one. And for the jiva to think he is separate from Para-Brahman, that is illusion. And that's why the language of the Vedas can be quite misleading unless there's a purport coming from our acharyas. Because sometimes it's described, there are verses that describe the jiva as Brahman and the Lord as Brahman. But it's different categories. So the Lord is Para-Brahman. We are tiny Brahman. You follow? But the Mayavadis say there is no distinction, that distinction of identification of you as being separate from the Supreme Brahman, that is illusion. And that's illusion you have to overcome by the process of self-realization. And then you'll realize that you are non-different from Brahman. Devotee giving class this morning, a Prabhupada disciple, how can I forget his name? Dinabandha Prabhu was sharing with us this morning about when he was young. He used to take various substances. And on the mountain with his friends, they would all look to the sky with the arms raised at the moon, say, "We are one, we are God." Then he had a stark realization at one point, he described, that he realized he wasn't supreme. He was just a drugged out hippie on a mountain. There was nothing divine about his vision. You know, Krishna gave him that wake-up call. Yeah, you're not God, you're just a stoned hippie. He said it like that. Anyway, okay. So, anyone understood these 2 points? Vigyan Brahma as opposed to Ananda Brahma. So, Vigyan Brahman is the Jiva, and Ananda Brahman is the Supreme Lord. So, Vigyan means, interesting, the word Vigyan here is used, realization. So, we can realize the Supreme. All right.
Vignan Brahma would be someone who knows the nature of the soul. That's why the person is Vignan Brahma.
Yeah, thank you. So that's more precise and correct. Yeah. Vigyan Brahma. They know the nature of the soul and his relationship with the Ananda Brahma. Yeah. We are part and parcel. Yeah. And our duty as the subordinate one is to render service to. Yeah, render service in a mood of love and or mood of devotion to Krishna, the Supreme Brahman. Okay, now the next verse is this verse would be often quoted by Prabhupada, and this verse is directly coming from the Upanishads. This verse, and it's quoted a lot by impersonalists. Oh, the book just disappeared. Okay, can you still see the Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Someone like to read text 14? Let's check the purple. Yeah, it's relatively small purple.
Shall I read it?
Yeah. So speaking about the super.
If nobody else.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvato kishishiro mukham sarvata shruti maloke sarvam avritya tisthati. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. Purport. As the sun exists, diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the Supersoul, or Supreme Personality of Godhead. He exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all the individual living entities, beginning from the first great teacher, Brahma, down to the small ants. There are unlimited heads, legs, hands, and eyes, and unlimited living entities. All are existing in and on the Supersoul. Therefore, the Supersoul is all-pervading. The individual soul, however, cannot say that he has his hands, legs, and eyes everywhere. That is not possible. If he thinks that under ignorance he is not conscious that his hands and legs are diffused all over, but when he attains to proper knowledge, he will come to that stage. His thinking is contradictory. This means that the individual soul, having become conditioned by material nature, is not supreme. The supreme is different from the individual soul. The supreme soul can extend his hands without limit. The individual soul cannot. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that if anyone offers him a flower or a fruit or a little water, he accepts it. If the Lord is as far distance away, how can he accept things? This is the omnipotence of the Lord. Even though he is situated in his own abode, far, far away from earth, he can extend his hand to accept what anyone offers. That is his potency. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Goloka eva nivasati akhilam mata bhuta. Although he is always engaged in pastimes in his transcendental planet, he is all-pervading. The individual soul cannot claim that he is all-pervading. Therefore, this verse describes the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead, not the individual soul.
Okay.
Krishna.
Prabhupada is saying this because some will say, some commentators on Bhagavad Gita will say, this is speaking about the jiva. Ever are the jiva's hands, ever are his legs, his eyes, heads, and faces. Yeah, that's the commentary that the impersonalists will give to this verse. So Prabhupada's making it very clear and even in the word in the translation, he's put super soul. There's no word for super soul in the word for word, but in the verse, Prabhupada puts super soul. Then it, Prabhupada's making it very clear. Now, what this doesn't mean as well, it doesn't mean that Krishna has thousands of eyeballs everywhere, literally, and millions of faces. It doesn't literally mean that. What it's explaining, just as our eyes are able to have a certain vision, our faces and our ears, etc., we have a certain perception of our immediate surroundings. So in the same way, the Lord, by his all-pervading, by his energies, which is absolute, pervading everything, he is conscious. So it doesn't mean he's literally there's eyeballs everywhere and there's legs everywhere and there's ears everywhere, for example. Yeah, I think perhaps we understand that. But just it's describing his omnipotence or omnipresence. Yeah. Any clarifications needed? Any questions?
I'm just asking because I don't know. Maybe it means that one part of his body can do the jobs of other parts. That's why it says sarvatra, all the eyes. I mean, the hand can see and hear, or eyes can eat.
Yeah, I mean that as well. Yeah, here Prabhupada says it directly. Yeah, when you throw, that's how it's understood. Yeah, when you make an offering to Krishna, he has transcendental senses, so they can all take on the activities of other senses. So it's not restricted in any way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, so the super soul doesn't have eyes everywhere and ears everywhere. Super soul would have just at the precise place, but other parts of the body can do the job of a different part.
Yeah, yeah. So this is all quite fantastic to try and comprehend how his consciousness, how he himself, the Lord, is spread everywhere. And he can hear everything and he does know everything by his presence as the super soul. It really is I think I've given this example before, but just to help us understand, it's just the same when we're the soul within our body and we are conscious, we are situated in the heart region of the body, very tiny, but we are conscious to some extent, not completely, but to some extent of what's going on with our body. You have a headache, you have a bad back, you tread on a pin, and you can feel it. Although you're the soul situated in the heart, you can feel it because your consciousness is spread throughout the body from the top of your head down to your toes. So in that sense, like God, like us, we have my minute experience of being omnipresent. Very minute, but it's just in regards to our body. So if you consider that this body or this universe is the transcendental body of the Lord. So as our consciousness gets spread, our consciousness spreads throughout this body. So the Lord's consciousness is spread throughout the universal body. Yeah? So that way, that might help us to appreciate, to some degree, the Lord's all-pervasive nature. Yeah. Even our consciousness can sometimes transcend or emanate out of the body. You know, sometimes you can feel someone looking at you, or someone you can feel a certain presence. You can feel a certain. Sometimes you can feel. You can read into what you feel in a certain personal association. You can pick up things because the consciousness is kind of always. It does have some ability to acknowledge on a subtle platform. So the Lord has this. He is, the whole universe is his body. Yeah. So something to meditate upon before we go to sleep today. Let me just adjust a few things here. Something's gone wrong with my screen here. Can you still see Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Okay, so it's something I'm doing wrong here. 1 second. Oh, good. Because I can just see Gita and I can't see the devotees. And you still see Gita? Yeah?
Yes, we can see the text. 13.
Okay. I can't see
Duration.
devotees. 1 second, let me try and make this smaller. Okay, I'm back. Kind of back. Okay, we've got what's the time? We've got 3 minutes left. Let's just let me just read the verse here. Yeah, and then we can perhaps pause there and pick it up next week, the verse in purple again. Savendriya gunabhasham savendriya vivajitam ashaktam shavabritchaiva nigunnam guna bhaktricha. The super soul is the original source of all the senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is a maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of the modes of material nature. Okay? Hare Krishna. So, quick, before I get tempted to read the purport, perhaps we'll pause there, okay? And we'll pick this up next week. Yeah? And tomorrow we'll be on Brihat Bhagavatamrita, okay? We changed from Thursday to Wednesday, so tomorrow Brihat Bhagavatamrita. And Thursday we'll be starting our reading stroke study of Sudha Bhakti Chintamani, if you'd like to join us for that. And we're going to send, so a couple of devotees have asked me for the link as well, so we've created a link and we put it on the London School of Vedic, London College of Vedic Studies. So there might be a couple more devotees joining us. So what it might mean, I shall find out and confirm tomorrow. It might mean that you have to just register, yeah, and then you get the link. But I shall find it out for certain. Okay. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us for this reading of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13.
Thank you.
A little bit technical, but you got some things to meditate upon. One is that we're never born and we never die. That's good news. Also, learn to be tolerant. Remember that tolerance switch? Learn to be tolerant. Also, how to move in the material world, that we don't have to unnecessarily take on materialistic association. We have to learn how to do that. And also the all-pervasive nature of the Supreme Lord. Okay? So thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow if you'd like to join us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So much.